Hey, this is Nicky G and welcome to Better Commander. Today we're talking about big combos, tappin, untappin, flip-flappin with our buddy, Alaundo The Seer. Wow, what an awesome day it is. Picture freshly mown grass, iced tea, blue skies as far as the eye can see. You and your buddy Bjorn are hanging out in the forest, you're showing him your cool new knife. What a day to subscribe to my channel. It's an act of pure love that will only spark joy for the rest of your human existence. Anyways, Alondo was a prolific prophesizer in his day at Candle Keep. This guy would write stuff down and it came true. This is reflected in the mechanic built around him. So let's get right into it. Read the card. Alaundo The Seer, look at this unit. 2 green and a blue for a legendary creature. He's a human shaman, 3/5. Tap, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand and put a number of time counters on it equal to its mana value. It gains when the last time counter is removed from this card. If it's exiled, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you cast a creature spell this way, it gains haste until end of turn. Then, remove a time counter from each other card you own in exile. Alright, so let's be very clear, this is not suspend, but it interacts with cards with suspend. If you exile a card with 0 mana value, say Gaia's Will, nothing will happen. The only way the card can be cast with his ability is if the last time counter is removed. You can, however, exile excess lands from your hand to keep the chain going, they just get exiled forever. Cards like the aforementioned Gaia's Will, if suspended, will be affected by Alondo's ability. So this guy's a pure combo engine. We want to be untapping him like crazy and drawing cards and casting cards. Our turns are going to take like 20 minutes, just be aware of that. It's an incredibly dirtly deck. Sometimes combo decks have this problem, there's really no helping it. If your playgroup groans when this guy comes out, then you know you're doing it right. Also, this guy wins in a predictable way with cards that can make certain players crazy. My group is a little higher power with lots of interaction. No one minds a combo that ends the game, with a key piece that can be removed pretty easily. If your group gets salty about that, maybe don't build this deck. I built a pretty effective combo engine for about $115, $120. Now, even if combo isn't your cup of tea, it's worth checking out to see how everything interacts to create this Rube Goldberg machine of tapping and untapping. So what are some key strategies? Well, Alondo draws cards, so we want to lean into that to get our key pieces assembled onto the battlefield. Cards that say you have no maximum hand size, like Reliquary Tower, are pretty good in this deck. We also have Nezahal, Primal Tide, so it's 5 blue for a legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. It's a 7/7. This spell can't be countered, you have no maximum hand size. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card. And you can also discard 3 cards, exile Nezahal, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This card can take over games, and it's hard to get rid of. At a certain point, you'll have a handful of 2 interaction pieces and 6 lands, and Nezi lets us pitch those in response to targeted removal or a board wipe so he can hang around. Teferi's Ageless Insight. I've been putting this in a lot of decks too. 2 blue for a legendary enchantment. If you would draw a card except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. This doubles our Alondo draw, gets us to our combo pieces, enough said about that. How about Eon Chronicler? It's 3 blue for a creature avatar, Star. Power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand. It also has suspend X, X3 and a blue, X can't be 0. Whenever a time counter is removed from Aeon Chronicler while it's exiled, draw a card. So its last ability doesn't care if Alondo put the time counters there on it or if you suspended it. So this hooded weirdo is going to double up Alondo's draw as well. Oh, speaking of hooded weirdos, here he comes. Arcanus the Omnipotent, 3 blue for a legendary creature wizard. It's a 3/4. Tap, draw 3 cards. You can also pay 2 blue, return Arcanus the Omnipotent to its owner's hand. This guy's really good in this deck. Drawing 3 cards is great, but if we cast it with Alondo's ability, it comes down with haste. It also benefits from all of our untappers. Ancestral Vision. So this has suspend 4, 1 blue mana. So target player draws 3 cards. So suspend cards are good with Alondo, and I'll talk about a few in a minute, but this draws us 3 cards for 1 mana basically. This is a really neat card and can be cast sometimes the turn we suspend it if we get enough untappers out there. Gaia's Will, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, so this is suspend 4 for 1 green mana. Until the end of turn, you may play lands and cast spells from your graveyard. If a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile that card instead. So our instant interaction and our untappers can get a second use. I have a lot of cards that untap at instant speed. You have to be a little careful with this due to that last sentence, but this is fantastic late game. Inspiring Refrain is 4 blue for a sorcery. It says draw 2 cards, exile it with 3 time counters on it. It has suspend, 3, 2, and a blue. This just keeps coming back and drawing more cards. Later in the game, think around turn 6 or so, Alondo is hopefully untapping lots of times and you have several untappers out on the board to keep this going. I've goldfished this in a couple of games. This thing happens twice a turn. Inevitable Betrayal. So this has suspend 3, 1 blue. Search target opponent's library for a creature card and put that card onto the battlefield under your control. Then that player shuffles. Get the biggest, baddest threat from an opponent and take some heat off of Alondo. When I first saw this card spoiled, I was like, oh my god, this is great, but in practice it's not unless you have a way to get those suspend counters off, which is what Alondo is doing. Reality Strobe. This goes well with the tapper-untapper dancing disco effect that Alondo has. 4 blue for a sorcery, return target permanent to its owner's hand, exile Reality Strobe with 3 time counters on it. It also has suspend 3, 2, and a blue. So this is repeatable bounce, and as I said, 3 time counters is really nothing with Alondo on the battlefield, and this might happen once or twice a turn. Then we just have suspend, 1 blue for an instant, exile target creature and put 2 time counters on it. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. This can be used defensively or offensively. If a key piece gets removed, we can suspend it to come back with Alondo later in the turn. Soul Talisman is an artifact. It has suspend 3 and then it comes down and is basically a soul ring. So MH2 had some excellent suspend cards. This one goes great in this deck. Okay, so how do we go about untapping Alondo? Well, there are 11 creatures and 10 non-creature ways to do so in this deck. I'll highlight a few, but let's not belabor the point here. I'm not going to go through every one. First one's Kiora's Follower, green and a blue for a creature, Merfolk 2/2. It has tap, untap another target permanent. Also Seeker of Skybreak, 1 green for a creature, elf 2/1. Tap, untap target creature. These two are excellent, cheap, repeatable. There are creatures that make us pay mana to untap it also, like Sereth, the Viper's Fang, 2 green for a legendary creature. It's a human warlock, 3/4. Other tap creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. It has 1 and tap, untap another target creature or land you control. Chakram Retriever. This thing's great in this deck. It's 4 and a blue for a creature and it's an elemental dog, 2/4. Partner with Chakram Slinger, that doesn't really matter. Whenever you cast a spell during your turn, untap target creature. So technically we're casting the spells we've exiled with time counters when the last time counter is removed. So this triggers the good doggy to untap Alondo and do it all over again. Mercfiend Liege, 2. Hybrid Simic for a creature, horror 4/4. Other green creatures you control get +1/+1. Other blue creatures you control get +1/+1. Untap all green and or blue creatures you control during each other player's untap step. I swear, man, I saw this guy in the self-checkout line at Walmart on Tuesday. We can activate our commander on each player's untap step as many times as we have ways to untap him. So if we have, say, Seeker of Skybreak out, we can do that twice each turn. If we have another creature-based untapper, we can just go buck wild. I'd be remiss not to mention 1,000-Year Elixir. It's 3 generic mana for an artifact. You may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. So 1 and tap, untap target creature. I mean, this is one of the best cards in the deck, especially if you can get it out early. All our untappers will plop down and do their thing with haste. Quest for Renewals, 1 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control becomes tapped, you may put a quest counter on Quest for Renewal. As long as there are 4 more quest counters on Quest for Renewal, untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. This will come online very quick and provides a similar effect to Mercfiend Liege. Patriarch's Seal, very interesting in this deck. 3 generic mana for an artifact, tap, add 1 mana of any color, 1 and tap, untap target legendary creature you control. I would have liked the art to be of some kind of elephant seal or something, but this is cool as well. This is a mana rock that untaps your guy. I really like this. This card is going straight into Kydel Bile Smasher, which is another combo deck. There are a number of instant speed untappers like Twiddle, things like that, but how do we win with this deck? Well, we want to draw our deck and win with Thassa's Oracle or Lab Maniac. Failing that, we can draw out with Psychosis Crawler on the field and kill with direct damage. Psychosis Crawler is 5 generic mana for an artifact creature, Phyrexian Horror. Power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. Fantastic in this deck. Alright, here's where it gets pricey. Illusionist Bracers, 2 generic mana for an artifact equipment. Whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy, and it has equip 3. If we get this on an untapper, we can untap it and Alondo, thereby drawing our deck and winning. We can also use the untap on a mana dork for infinite mana to spend on whatever we want. So we also have Freed from the Real, 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura, enchant creature. So it has blue tap enchanted creature, blue untap enchanted creature. So this is just a fantastic untapper in this deck, but it goes along with our next guy. Arixmethes, the Slumbering Isle. It's a 12/12 legendary creature Kraken for 2 green and a blue. Arixmethes Slumbering Isle enters the battlefield tapped with 5 slumber counters on it. As long as it has a slumber counter on it, it's a land. So whenever you cast a spell, you may remove a slumber counter from it. It also has tap, add green and a blue. So basically you're generating infinite green mana if you get freed from the real on this thing. And we also have Rings of Bright Hearth, which can double Alondo's abilities or those of an untapper as well. I wanted to make a quick mention of Kogla the Titan Ape. So this is 3 green for a legendary creature ape. It's a 7/6. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Whenever it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. It also has 1 and a green. Return target human you control to its owner's hand. Kogla gains indestructible until end of turn. This can be a protection piece for Alondo because he is a human. It's also emblematic of kind of the green and blue good stuff you can throw in this deck to just kind of trip your opponents up and present big giant threats for removal. So I'll put the deck list into the description. It's a bit confusing at first as to how Alondo's ability works, but once you get the hang of it, you have a relatively cheap, competitive combo deck that can be souped up or dumbed down to suit your playstyle. I like the design, it's simic dumb stuff, but in a different direction than usual. I have a lot of fun with this deck, I hope you guys too, and I hope you found it of some use. So thanks a lot for watching. This is going to be Nicky G from Better Commander, signing off.